Hello, everyone, and welcome to this morning's webinar. We are here today with Joseph Gress from Innovia Consulting. He has been with the company since 2014 and has been with NAV since 2003. And his outside activities involve astronomy, and he is pretty geeked up about the upcoming solar eclipse, which he will be attending over the weekend. He'll be leaving tomorrow and traveling to Kansas. His hometown is where he will be vacationing for the next few days to see the solar eclipse. So he's pretty geeked up about that and excited about seeing that. So we are going to just talk about a couple of housekeeping items for the moment. We have the recording today will be recorded and it will be on our website available for you to view, and we will also have a question and answer at the end of the webinar. So if anyone has any questions that they want answered, you can go ahead and type them into the questions box, and we will read them at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joseph, and he is going to start our presentation.
Well, thank you, Angie, and welcome everyone. I hear there's a good turnout today, so I'm glad that you're all interested in dimensions. I'm going to stop sharing my webcam. I did want everybody to see me, but just to see that I'm here, but this way I can just focus on the presentation. So as Andy said, our topic today is all about dimensions, and now my screen isn't okay, there it goes. So we're going to talk about a number of topics around dimensions. It's kind of outlined here, but kind of an introduction to dimensions, what they are, how they're, why you would use them. Then we'll talk about creating them, getting everything set up, and then also setting up default dimensions that really make them easy to use. I'll do a little bit of a kind of something for the programmers here about dimension set IDs. For the rest of you, I mean, you might find it interesting, but you can sleep through that part if you want. And then we'll get to analyzing the data, talking about how to use the dimensions to learn something for your company. I am going to try to keep this to an hour, and so I've put a topic at the end, dimension priorities and combinations. Hopefully we'll have time for that, and then we'll wrap up with conclusions and questions. So what is a dimension? Dimensions are a way to organize your data and allow you to report on it in a very flexible way what you do with dimensions is create dimensions that make sense for your company and then attach them to documents, to customers, to records, and then that information then flows to your posted data, and you're then able to report on them. You can have an unlimited number of dimensions, and each dimension can have an unlimited number of values, and all of those are you define and set them up for what makes sense for your own business. So with dimensions, the whole reason that you have an accounting system is to be able to create reports or to analyze how your company is doing, and probably if you're thinking about it, you have different ways that you want to look at that data, and dimensions allow you to define the parameters or the options that make sense for your business, and then to analyze your data based on those dimensions. So in a moment, I'm going to get to actually looking at how this works. In fact, I'll get to it right now as we talk about setting up dimensions. And so let me jump into Nav and bring that screen up. And so the dimensions are in the financial management area, I believe under setup and administration, and there's a dimensions area. And so if you click on that, and I'm in a Cronus database, a demo database that has some data, but let's just simulate adding a new dimension. Let's suppose that your company ranks your customers, your great customers, the ones that that spend a lot of money with you, that have good ideas, they work with your consultants and implement what your consultants, they listen to the consultants. So those might be great customers. And then you might have some good customers. They come to you with questions frequently, but they're not as engaged as the great customers. And then you might have some that are what we might call fair customers. They only call you when they're when they're stressed out, when their things aren't working right, and they need you to get their system working. So I'm going to create something that I'm going to call cust ranking, and let me call it customer ranking, and I'm going to make the code caption customer ranking code, and the filter customer ranking filter. So there I've created a customer ranking. I guess I'm limited to 10 characters. I'm going to rename it to customer rank because I didn't like the way cust rank in sounded. And so now I have a dimension, but I need some values to go along with that. And so I'm going to call it A, great. These are great customers. And then I'm going to call it B, good. Good customers. I want to add the S to the great customers, and then I'll call it C, fair, and fair customers. And these can mean whatever you want them to mean, but so there I've created a new dimension called cust rank, and so that is all we need to set it up. And so now I want to go to my next slide, which is default dimensions. I won't actually show this on the screen, but once you have a dimension set up, so let me kind of back up a second and talk about, you know, how this cust rank would be used. What we want is, whenever appropriate, we want to attach that dimension to either a document, maybe a sales order, or a sales return order, maybe, and also it could be to a journal. If you use a sales journal, we might attach it there. So we want that dimension value, whether it's an A customer, a great customer, or a B, a good customer, or a C, a fair customer. We want that attached to any document or any journal where it makes sense. Now, to simplify that and make that automatic, what we would do is set up default dimensions. And we could do that. So let me just demonstrate it. We would do that on a master record, so a customer record, a vendor record, an item record, maybe a contact record. Any master record we can attach default dimensions to. And this is standard functionality. So I'm going to switch over to the customer card. And I'll just go to the dimensions from here. I guess that's on the Navigate tab. I have a choice of dimensions single and dimensions multiple. I'm just going to talk about dimensions single to start with. I'll come back to multiple dimensions at the end if there's time. But here we've already set up for this Spotsmeyer furnishing that customer is area 70, the industrial business group. It's a small customer group, and the sales department and the summer sales campaign. And I'm going to now add this new dimension that I just added, the cust rank, and I'm going to say this is a great customer. He spends a lot of money. He doesn't complain a lot. He's just a great customer. And so I've attached him. I've attached that as a default dimension to that customer. And so anytime that customer is used on a sales order or sales journal, that dimension value will come along, and we'll see that in a moment. We can also, there's a property on this dimension called value posting, and I at least at first when I saw this, they didn't quite make sense. Now I wonder what was so hard about it, and I frequently find that with almost anything when I'm learning it. It seems like at first it's like, what does that mean? Why do they say it that way? It doesn't make sense. And then once I understand it, I think, oh, that's easy. Why did I struggle with that? But it just seems like it's, anytime I'm learning something new, there's new things, and it takes a while to assimilate them. But what value posting does is determine how this is used. And so it could be blank, which means, there's nothing special about it. But we could say code mandatory. What that is saying is for that customer, we have to put a customer ranking, but it doesn't, we can change it on the sales order if we want. So we might say, normally he's a great customer, but he's been complaining a lot lately. So on this order, I'm going to switch him to being just a fair customer. But probably we want it, in this case, I would want it to always be, for this customer to always be, he's always a great customer. So we would say same code. So that's saying when we go I think it's when we go to post the sales order, it goes and checks and says that customer ranking has to be there, and it has to be A- grade for that Spotsmeyer furnishings. So I'm going to say OK on that. So that's how you set up default dimensions. Now, this probably doesn't make sense, but we could set up that same customer ranking on an item card, for example, or maybe a contact card maybe would make more sense. So on the item card, well, I don't think it makes sense to have a customer ranking on an item card, but we, in theory, we could set it up that, this item has the default cust rank of C. And so there's something called dimension priorities that say if there's more than, if there's a conflict between a default dimension on one master record, the customer say, and the default from another one, the item, which one would take priority? So that's what dimension priorities refers to. I'll try to come back to that a little bit at the end if there's time. So now if I create a sales order for this customer, and normally when I do a demonstration, I go through and practice everything ahead of time. I didn't practice this part, so hopefully this will all work the way I envision that it will. So I'm going to select this Spotsmeyer furnishing. Actually, before I select it, let's go to the dimensions for this order and see that we don't have any dimensions set up or any dimension values here. But as soon as I put in Spotsmeyer furnishing, it will bring in all those dimensions that were on that customer card, all those default dimensions. So it has, it doesn't have cust rank. Did I choose a different customer? It doesn't look like it. So, well, that's what it should have done. I'm not sure why it didn't do that. So I'll have to look into that at the end. But anyway, normally that would be what it would do, is bring in the default dimensions on the customer record. So let me just double check and see that dimension value is there on Spotsmeyer. So it does have it here, cust rank, and somehow it's not showing here on the order. So don't know why. I'm not going to worry about it though, but that is, it may be like a refresh issue, but it always works that way, except during a demo. Okay, so that is on the order, and actually, since it's not coming in, I'm going to go ahead and add it. So I'm going to put cust rank, and just to show, we'll see, I'm going to say this is a B, a good customer, which is different than what I set up on the customer card, just to see how it will handle that. And so now if I'm just going to do a GL account just to, so I don't have to worry about having the inventory on hand. And I'm going to say this is for $100. And now one other piece with dimensions is there's dimensions associated with the order itself, but you could initially they will be the same on the dimensions. And so if I go to related information and dimensions, so it pulled in all of the dimensions that we had set up on the order, including our customer ranking, that he's a good customer. And so now I'm going to post this order. So here's my post button, and I'm going to ship an invoice. And so it posted and asked, do I want to open the posted invoice? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And so if I look at the dimensions on this posted order, the customer ranking came in as that he's a good customer, and all the other dimensions came in as well. And those also, if I navigate on this, so let me click on the navigate button to show the related entries, so we can go to the, say, the GL entries associated with this. So if I show these related entries, if I look at the dimensions on the GL entries, those same dimensions, including that customer ranking, that he's a good customer, came along. And so that is what makes the reporting so powerful with dimensions. So we've talked about default dimensions and showed how the dimensions get carried along. First, when we create the order, they get pulled in. We can change them if desired. And then when we post the order, those dimension values get carried along to the posted invoice, and also any associated general ledger entries. If there were item ledger entries, they would be carried along there as well. So now I would like to take a slight detour, and this is the part I mentioned at the beginning, that if you're not a programmer, you may not be interested in this, but if you are a programmer, it's very helpful to understand this. So let me just bring up my screen again and get this. So onto my dimension sets. So dimension sets were introduced in NAV 2013, which is now quite a few years ago, 4 years ago. Prior to that, NAV or Dynamics NAV stored dimensions. They stored each dimension value in a separate table, which would be like the document dimension table, or the journal line dimension table, or the posted document dimension table, or the ledger dimension table. And anytime a posting would occur, NAV would create all these extra records. And so prior to NAV 2013, there was a pretty, I would say, a major performance hit if you were using a lot of dimensions. And even if you were just using a few, it was still a significant, there was a lot of processing that went along with using dimensions. But in NAV 2013 and later versions, Microsoft changed how dimensions are carried along to these, how they're recorded on journals or on documents, and then how they're carried along. And the way they did that is with something that's called a dimension set. So here I talk about what a dimension set is, that it's a set of values that all have the same dimension set ID. And so let me just go to the next screen. To me, an example, it makes it a little easier to see. So what NAV does is every time that you change a dimension on a document or on a journal line, it looks and says, okay, do I have a dimension set which contains all of the dimension values that are associated with that document? So we'll look at that on a document in a moment. But this example shows that dimension set ID 108 is that dimension set is the one that has area 70 and business group home and department sales. And so so if that is a set of dimensions that corresponds to a given document, then what NAV does is, all it does is stores dimension set ID 108 on the document header or the document line, and that then is all the information we need to know that this is this set of dimensions. So let me go back and kind of look at that back on our I guess I'll do it on our posted invoice. So here I'm on my posted sales invoice, and so if I look at the dimensions associated with it, it's this set, area 70, business group, office, customer group, medium, and so on. But actually, this is a dimension set ID. I'm not sure if I can see that. If I go to about this page, does it show me the dimension set ID? Yeah, so its dimension set ID is 150. So so this combination of dimensions is 150. Well, on this posted invoice, if I do a help about this page and look at the table fields, and if I scroll down to dimension set ID, there's 150. So this is how the program keeps track of the dimension values that are associated with this posted document. Now I'm going to in a moment go into looking at using this data, because if you're a programmer, you might say, oh my gosh, how do I tie that all together? How do I tie together that what I see on the invoice is that it's dimension set ID 150, but what I really need to know is that it's these dimension values. Well, there's a tool that we'll be looking at in a few minutes called analysis views that kind of make that automatic for us, that kind of pull that all together. But when I was going through the setup, I forgot a very important part of the setup. So let me go back to that. And that is something called setting up global dimensions and shortcut dimensions. So let me go to the general ledger setup. So so if I go to the general ledger setup, there's a whole tab related to dimensions. And so there are 2 global dimensions and then 8 shortcut dimensions. So what do these mean? Well, I mentioned earlier that we could have an infinite number of different dimensions, and each dimension can have an infinite number of dimension values. In addition, on a given document, say a given sales order, we could have an infinite number of different dimensions attached to that order. We're not limited to just 8, but we could have 20 dimensions if you had that many dimensions set up. And these would be 20 different ways of looking at your data. I don't know that makes sense, but it might for you. And so if you have that many, you could have that many dimensions set up. And if you had them set up as default dimensions, they would automatically come along, and you don't really have to do anything. But there's something special with these 2 global dimensions, and then the 8 shortcut dimensions. So let me first talk about the global dimensions. The global dimensions there's 2 global dimensions, and the global dimensions are automatically added to the table, the underlying table. So if it's a sales order, the global dimension values, the department and project, in this case, dimension values are automatically included in the table. What does that do for you? What that means is that you can filter on those values. So if I go back to my sales orders and go to my sales order list, and if I want to filter this list based on department, okay, so department or project, I can do that. They're in the for me to be able to filter on it, they have to be in the table. And so those 2 global dimensions are in the table. But the other dimensions are not stored in the sales header table. So going back to the GL setup, I shouldn't have closed that. So let me go back to it. I'll do it through the departments. So on the general ledger setup, so the customer group or area or business group, those don't show up I'll just look for area. If I go back to the to the sales orders. Area is not listed as a field that I can filter on. So area is not listed there. If I go to all the fields, it's making a liar out of me. Let me just make sure this is the same area. I think this may be a different area. So let me look for a customer group. So if we looked at the dimensions, so we have a customer group dimension, and so if I try to filter on customer group, so we have customer posting group, customer price group, but we don't have customer group. So this area here is actually not the area dimension. It was a poor choice that I used that, but it's another field in the database. But the other dimensions, only the two global dimensions appear in this list. So that's the global dimensions. Now the shortcut dimensions, those come into play either on a document line or also on a journal line. And so all of the shortcut dimensions are available as columns that we can add to this to be displayed and actually used on the, we can enter the information directly on the line. So area code was the dimension we were trying to look at. Department code we can add, customer group code, and let's see if there's other ones that I notice. Project code. So I've added those all as dimensions that show up on the line. So I have to reopen it for them to show up. So let me go off. And back on. So now if I look, I now have columns for area code and department code and customer group code and project code on the line, and I can make changes to them on the line directly as well. So I could say this project is Mercedes, and it tells us something. Oh, it's already shipped, so it's saying I probably shouldn't be doing that. But that kind of shows the idea. So if I go, let me go to an order that's open. So if I can change the dimension values here. So here I'm going to change the project group code to be large or Mercedes. The department, I'll change it to be production. So it makes it easy to make changes to the value. So let me summarize that. On the general ledger setup, there are two global dimensions that you can set up, and then 8 shortcut dimensions. Actually, the two Global dimensions are also the first two shortcut dimensions. That's automatic. And but the shortcut dimensions, if I get to the general ledger setup, so these first two shortcut dimensions are the same as the two global dimensions. And then the other shortcut dimensions are all of the shortcut dimensions are ones that are available for quick entry directly on a document line or on a journal line. So it really speeds up the data entry instead of having to go into that subform, the dimension subform. But again, I mentioned that if it's a default dimension, they get added automatically, and that makes it a lot simpler. You don't even have to worry about them. Okay, so that's all that I wanted to say about the global dimensions and shortcut dimensions. As far as reporting goes, there's no difference between the ones that are set up as global or shortcut, but it's only for data entry. I guess the other thing I want to mention is to change the global dimensions, behind the scenes, whenever you change the dimensions, NAV has to go in and change every posted document, every ledger entry, and also every open document, every open journal line, because it stores those values directly on each record, and that's, if you have a lot of data, that's an extremely time-consuming task. It could take many hours. So it's something normally you would only do it if you had a really good reason to do it, and I would really encourage you to talk with your NAV reseller or a consultant and make sure it makes sense and test it out ahead of time. Because you can do it, but sometimes people have put in modifications or custom things that assume that these global dimensions are the way they're set up. So it's something that you should changing the global dimensions is only something you should do after thinking about it carefully and testing it. The shortcut dimensions aren't as critical. It's just what shows up for the user on the lines, either the sales order lines or the document lines. So it's a lot easier to change them, and the ramifications aren't as severe. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about the setup. So let me get back to my my PowerPoint. So now I want to spend a few minutes talking about analyzing data by dimensions. The whole reason that we're using dimensions is to be able to analyze your data using those dimensions. So, about what I alluded to this when I talked about dimension sets, is it kind of complicates dimension, analyzing it, because it's not right in the table that you might be wanting to analyze. It's not, the dimension value isn't stored in your, except for the global dimensions, in your posted sales order or your general ledger entry. It's in this other table, and it's a little bit, not terribly complicated, but a little complicated to pull that into a report. But there's a a very powerful way that Microsoft has provided to allow you to analyze your data by dimensions. And that's by something that's called an analysis view. So let's take a look at that, setting up an analysis view and then actually using it. So we'll look at that now. So let me go back. And so if I look in this dimensions area under financial management, setup, administration, there's this place to set up analysis views. And so let's take a look at this revenue analysis view. And I'm just going to edit it just to see what's on it. So I mean it's actually there's a lot of things you can do on this. It's beyond the scope of this to go into all of them, but you can specify the account source. So you have a choice of GL account or a cash flow account. I'm only going to look at GL accounts. You can filter on accounts, so you can, for this analysis view, you can say, I only want to look at GL accounts. In this case, they're saying 40,000 to 49,500. So let's just get down to there. Should have just set a filter. So it looks like it's the revenue accounts. So I'm filtering on all of the revenue accounts, 40,000 to 49,950. You can set date compression. You can do it by day, week, month. This one's set up to be a month, to compress it by a month. And then you can set a starting date for this this analysis view. And so that's the general tab. The dimensions tab is where we specify the dimensions that we want to use. And so this one we can set up to 4 dimensions per analysis view. So the way to think about this is that an analysis view is a way to set up to analyze 4 related dimensions. So in this case, I'm only looking at 3 of them, but I want to look at analyzing data by area, by department, by project. And we have one available here. So I could add in this customer ranking. So let me go ahead and do that. So it tells us that the analysis view entries will be deleted and you'll have to update again. And if you have a lot of data, that could be time consuming because this is a demo database. It doesn't have a lot of data, and so it should be pretty fast. So I'm going to go ahead and add this customer ranking. And so then it told us that it deleted all the data. And so I'm going to tell it to update. And it will run for, I mean, if it was in your live database with millions of records, that might run for an hour or more. But since there's not a lot of data here, it only took a few seconds. So it recreated this analysis view, including the customer ranking. Now, we don't have much customer ranking data, but that gives you the idea. So there is an option to update on posting. This one we don't have set to update on posting. So what that means is that since we just ran the update, all of our the analysis view entries have been created, so we can use this analysis view for all of the data, that applies to it. But that if we were to do additional postings, those would not automatically be available for analysis. But we could enable this update on posting. So, and here it prompts us that if we update on posting, we need to update the analysis view. Do we want to do that? So I'm going to say yes. So our data is again up to date. But now if we were to do any additional postings, that the analysis view entries would automatically be created to so that we're able to use this without thinking about it. So that is, if you don't have a lot of data, I would really encourage you to use that function. But if you're posting thousands or tens of thousands of transactions a day, then you might want those postings to go through as quickly as possible, and so you might disable that update on posting, and then you would periodically need to run this update. So that depends on your own situation of which you use. It makes it a lot more convenient to update on posting, but it can slow the posting down. Okay, so so that is setting up the analysis view. Now, to actually see, get the results of that, I don't think this name is really intuitive. I would call it analysis view matrix or analysis view reporting, but they call it edit analysis view. So if we click on that, it brings up kind of I would describe this as kind of a request page for seeing this analysis. So there's this show matrix, we'll look at it in a moment, but we have a choice. I mean, since we came in, we want to see the revenue analysis view, but we can choose what would show as lines. So we can choose any of these. So we'll take a look at, we'll first do it having the GL account as the lines. We could, by default, it brings in the same filter that's on the analysis view setup, but we could restrict that even further if we wanted for this report or this matrix that we're going to be viewing. Then we can choose what we want to view by. Okay, we'll do it by accounting period. But as columns, I don't want to show period. I want to see the area as the columns. So let me make that change. And now let's take a look at the matrix and see what the result is. So if I do the show matrix, so this is showing our different area values. So area 30 has these $30,000 of resources that were, you know, in the ledger the resulting ledger entries. We have $18,000 in raw materials for department or for area 30. And this is a flow field, so we can drill into that. Okay, what went into that $18,000 for area 30? And if we drill into that, actually, well, there's only one entry for that whole amount. If you had a lot of data, you know, it would show all of the data. So that is the analysis view. Now what it's drilling into is these analysis view entries. So that's the kind of the summarized data that update function gave us. So our time is starting to run short, and I've pretty much shown what I wanted to show on the analysis by dimensions. So let me jump back to my PowerPoint and go. And so I'm now at the conclusions and questions. So let me kind of summarize what I've talked about for a minute, and then I'll take a few questions. And if you have questions, be sure to type them in and get them to Angie. So what I've shown is that dimensions are a way that you can really increase the amount of data that you have that categorizes your ledger entries, your posted data, and it's very easy to set up new dimensions, and you can do an unlimited number. You can have an unlimited number of values for each dimension. You can set up default dimensions for each master record, so your customer can have a default area, a default customer ranking, a default department, and those automatically flow along to anytime that customer is used on a document or a journal line. In addition, let's see. In addition, we have shortcut dimensions. We have two global dimensions. Those automatically get added, and we can filter on those on the journal lines, on the orders, and so on. But we also have, in addition to the two global dimensions, 6 shortcut dimensions, and those you can edit directly on the sales order line, the document line, or the journal line. Whereas if it's not a shortcut dimension, if it's one of the other dimensions, then you have to go into the dimension subform and add or edit them there. And then finally, we looked at analysis views and saw how we can get a report from this data, which is the whole point of this. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions that you may have.
Okay, Joe, we do have a couple of questions from some people. Do dimensions work well with business intelligence tools?
Certainly. So I would say dimensions work great with business intelligence tools. If you're using Jet Reports, Enterprise, for example, or other Power BI, dimensions work great with them. In order to use any of these business intelligence tools, you need the data in your system, to report on. And so dimensions provide a really powerful way to add additional categories of data or different data to report on. So they work great with these business intelligence tools. If you have the business intelligence tools, you may not need to use the analysis views and analysis by dimensions. You may go directly to your tools, but the dimensions themselves work great.
Okay, great.
Any
Thank
other
you, Joe.
questions?
Yes. How many dimensions should I use?
So that's a good question. If you're earlier than NAV 2013, well, first of all, I would say you should be upgrading. Your system is getting a little bit old in the tooth, and this is one area, a huge area where there's an issue with a large number of dimensions because of it affected your performance. So prior to 2009 or 2009 and earlier, we used to say you should only have maybe 4, 5, or 6 dimensions, maybe 8 at the most, and that's because of the impact on performance. After 2009, that performance issues was eliminated, and so there's really not a performance reason to limit your number of dimensions, but instead, what I would say is you should only have dimensions if you're really going to look at the data. Otherwise, it just clutters things up. So as long as someone is looking at the data and using it, then use as many as you want. But probably 8 or 10 is probably as many as you would need. But if you have a great reason why you need 12 dimensions or 15 dimensions, there's no reason not to do it.
Okay, we have 2 more questions. How does use of dimensions affect performance?
Okay, well, I kind of answered that in the last answer. So there's 2 ways. So one way is if you're prior to NAV 2013, then there's a pretty big impact on performance when you go to post something. It has to create all the ledger entry dimensions, posted document dimensions, and that just took a lot of time. It also took up a lot of space in your database. After 2013, that issue went away, but the other place is on that parameter that I showed you on that update analysis view on posting. And so if you have a lot of data, then you should have that turned off and then just periodically update that data separately. But if you don't have a lot of transactions that you're posting every day, then you're good to go there.
Okay, we have one last question. Can an analysis by dimension be added to a job queue?
So updating an analysis by dimension could be added to a job queue. Actually, running the report, I am not 100% certain. The analysis view, looking at the analysis view the way that I did, involved looking at the analysis, the matrix, and I think I'm almost certain there are ways to create a report that would show that data, but I just don't know that off the top of my head. Excuse me. I'm almost certain that it's possible, but I'm not, I don't know the details of it off my head. So any other last minute questions?
Nope, that is all. Joe, I appreciate you going over that presentation for us. I apologize that it went over a little bit, but good content always does take a little bit longer to talk about. Just wanted to remind everyone that this is recorded and it will be posted on our website later this afternoon. So if you'd like to review it again or share it with another one of your coworkers, that would be great. And we welcome you to attend our next webinar, which will be the 24th of August, next Thursday. And it's going to be with our Innovia employee, Bob Beard, and he's going to be talking about using MS OneNote with Nav. So thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate you taking the time out to discuss all about dimensions with us. And everyone have a great day, and we'll see you at our next webinar. Thanks.
Thank you.